with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, May 18, 2026. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Assistant Professor of History, the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, and author of When Democrats Won the Heartland, Progressive Populism in the Age of Reagan. Also on the program today, Trump claims the clock is ticking on an Iran deal as Iran starts a Bitcoin-backed insurance for shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, the Trump regime is planting seeds for an attack on Cuba. And meanwhile, demanding Denmark allow more U.S. control of Greenland. Supreme Court rejects the challenge to the Biden-era Medicare drug price negotiation power. And Trump drops his IRS suit to facilitate a full-on embezzlement scheme from the U.S. government. Driven by AIPAC, Thomas Massey's congressional primary is now the most expensive congressional primary in the history of this country, just followed by Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush's.
What do these
primary.
things have in common?
Tomorrow, primaries in Alabama, Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, Oregon, Pennsylvania. Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy fails to make a runoff in his primary. FDA decides to open the floodgates for vaping products regardless of their safety. Like literally, regardless of their safety. Republicans struggling with the idea of a third reconciliation bill. As the second reconciliation bill, Senate parliamentarian nixes the $1 billion for the ballroom. Trump continues to crater in polls. Israel assaults the Samud flotilla, bringing aid to Gaza in international waters, and kidnaps the activists. Florida closing alligator Alcatraz after spending millions a day. DeSantis claims he's saving taxpayer money. And talks continue today as New York experiences a strike shutting down the largest commuter rail in the United States. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is
Fun Day Monday.
Oh, look who's back.
I'm sort of back. You gotta put me on the screen.
We should
There
say
we go.
Emma was ill last week.
Yeah, and now I've gotten Brian sick, it appears.
And Matt is also under the weather.
But
It's
he's
just-
here to
he's
run
here.
the show. I was under the weather. Not on Friday, though. I was out on a secret mission that will be soon to be revealed.
Can you announce it?
No, I will wait for the thing to drop, and then I'll announce it.
Okay. So keep your eyes
this
on the
space.
internet.
I went on another show to interview a politician, and the interview, I think, was quite interesting, so people should be on the lookout for that.
Great. Folks should check that out. Keep your eyes and ears open. Brian is out today. Matt is holding down the fort at probably close to like 25%. You're at 25%.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would have said.
I feel horrible. I feel horrible.
Emma is typhoid, doing her modern day typhoid Mary in the office.
My poor husband's just getting over it now as well.
The
So
chances
I
of me
guess-
not getting this, and and someone at my advanced age too. This could be really dangerous.
So sorry.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
I'm basically a weapon. Bioweapon.
A couple of things in the news today. Yesterday, there was a Louisiana. Was it yesterday?
Saturday.
Saturday. Today's Monday. Right. Okay. Saturday, there was a primary in the state of Louisiana. And Senator Bill Cassidy, who was one of those Republicans who voted in favor of Donald Trump's impeachment, one of those rare ones, has now paid the price. And in a 3 or 4 way primary, he came in third, so misses the runoff. Here he is. This was the day before that, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I think it was the day of, as the results are coming in. Bill Cassidy.
Saturday.
Yeah. By the way, yeah, primary on Saturday in Louisiana. It's just.
I mean, I guess it's better than a work day.
It's better than a work day.
That's great.
But it's just interesting, like New Jersey did that too, where they were having their primaries on Thursdays. It's like, we need to have a national day where there are elections that are designated and people can take time off.
Saturday, I think, is probably a better day. That way you get people who don't have to work. But he, on Saturday, was on Fox News with Jason Chaffetz. Was Jason Chaffetz the one, maybe I'm wrong about this, but who was the one who said, I can't face my 14-year-old daughter or something?
I think that was him after talking about Trump.
That's what I'm saying. This was after the grab him by the
P-word controversy.
Yeah, couldn't look his daughter in the face.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, seems like maybe he no longer talks to his daughter.
I'm incredibly proud of that. Chairman Jason Chaffetz, you and I got to serve in the Congress for a little while, but my question for you is still about Donald Trump. I mean, knowing what you know now about the farce that was put forward to the American people and the Congress, knowing what you know now, would you still vote to actually convict Donald Trump of the charges that he was put up for?
Reporters always love to ask that question. I'm a doctor. You give me all the information I can, I make a decision, I move on. I don't keep on going back, oh, what happened 5 years ago? I'm thinking about what's going to happen 5 years from now.
Senator, with all due respect, you just talked about the stuff you've done for the last 5 years. You just touted everything you've done for the last 5 years. Why can't you answer that question? Did you or did you not?
Hey, Jason,
knowing what you know now,
Jason, if I
want you to answer that question. Would you or would you not actually vote to convict, knowing what you know now? It's a simple question.
Yeah, Jason, you may go back and flagellate yourself over decisions in the past. I do not. I move on. By the way, what I'm talking about is not just the present, it is the future. By the way, the future also includes that if somebody wants somebody working for the state of Louisiana, for the future, not fixated on the past, then polls close at 8 o'clock tonight. Get out there and vote. But by the way, I will continue to vote for the future of Louisiana, working well with President Trump and anyone else. I'm about the future.
Oh, okay.
He's doing the Don Draper. I only go forward. I don't think about that, 2021 impeachment trial at all, even though it's the thing that's killing my political career.
Of course. Let me also just say this as someone who's watched politicians doing media hits for decades now professionally. If you have to use the words "by the way" 3 times over the course of 90-second response, you are stumbling. First of all, it's amazing to me that he doesn't have a better answer by the end of this primary campaign, and it's also sort of like, what's going on in his head? Does he feel like if he apologizes, he looks weak, or he's just selling himself out? Because he's already sold himself out. I mean, I just don't understand what hill he's dying on.
He seems to resent the idea that he has to buy into what Chaffetz is selling about that vote, that it was phony.
Then come out and say, you know what, I thought the vote was appropriate, because he's afraid to do that. But also,
his voters won't accept
again,
that.
Jason Chaffetz.
Yeah.
Days after the grab him by the P word came out, was like, I can't vote for this guy. I can't look at my daughter and know that I voted for this guy. And now, of course, whatever. I mean,
Lindsey Graham did the same thing. Remember when he was running against Trump in 2016, he called him an Islamophobe and was saying how he was unfit to lead the Republican Party and that we would lose over and over again and we would deserve it. That's what he was saying until, he found his new man to suck up to.
Donald Trump took his phone and number and gave it out to everyone. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
And on national
during
television.
a speech.
And but Lindsey Graham has learned his lesson. He has now been curbed and healed, and here he is, just like as if he's gone from Stepford Wife retraining.
Let me ask you about the news overnight. Senator Bill Cassidy losing his primary in Louisiana. You worked closely with Senator Bill Cassidy on a range of different issues, including a plan to replace Obamacare. He, of course, voted to convict President Trump back in 2021 in the impeachment trial. Now he's lost his seat. Are you glad that Senator Cassidy is no longer going to be your colleague, Senator?
No, I like Bill. I thought he's a great senator, but he made a political decision. He voted to impeach President Trump, which would have ruined his political life. He could never run for office again. Massey's on the ballot Tuesday. He votes against Trump all the time. What's the headline? Trump strong. Those who try to destroy Trump politically, stand in the way of his agenda, are going to lose. Bill made a decision. What would LBJ do? Is it natural for a politician to go after people who try to destroy their political life? So Bill Cassidy's lost because he tried to destroy Trump. Massey's going to lose because he's trying to destroy the agenda. You can disagree with President Trump, but if you try to destroy him, you're going to lose because this is the party of Donald Trump.
So for all people who are wondering, is Lindsey Graham being blackmailed? Is he afraid that somebody's going to out him? Or why is he doing it? It's because Lindsey Graham wants power over anything else. The reason why he was able to do a 180 on Donald Trump is because he wants power over anything else. And also, in terms of long game, he finally got what he's always wanted. He got the brass ring, as it were, and it was an attack on Iran. Now, it turns out to be a total unmitigated disaster.
But he wants further escalation. He doesn't want there to be any negotiations. So when is the better time to be as obsequious to Trump as possible? Although I feel like he keeps hitting new lows on that front. So.
I do not think that there is a floor.
Yeah.
And God knows what he's doing in person.
I know.
If we're watching what's happening in public, God knows what he's...
I feel terribly for the doctor that has to work on his knees.
Exactly.
At that old age, being on your knees that often.
Meanwhile, let's turn to something else. There is a story out today that Donald Trump is dropping his suit against the IRS. He sued the IRS for $10 billion because an IRS contractor had leaked his tax returns back in years ago, maybe in the early
2019, 2020.
And so Trump sued the U.S. government, the IRS. The DOJ, headed by his former defense attorney, decided we'll settle this. And the judge, who was about to kick the case out of court, said, well, I need to see the terms of any type of settlement by the 20th, since this is still an active lawsuit. So Trump today announced 2 days before that deadline, we're dropping the lawsuit. And the DOJ is supposedly going ahead with a deal with Trump to give him $1,776,000 for, not to him personally, of course, but to a slush fund that he completely controls to dole out money to people. And that's just one of the things. I mean, we had somebody on a week ago to go through all of Trump's corruption scandals. And since then, you have this IRS thing, which is a $1.7 billion corruption embezzlement scheme. You have new sort of dribs and drabs about Trump doing insider trading in the past 3 months for up to $750 million. Here is a caller into C-SPAN yesterday or Sunday, I guess.
Let's go to Thomas now, calling all the way in from Honolulu, Hawaii, on the Republican line. Good morning, Thomas. You're on with us.
Yes, good morning. A national thought and then a local one. It's hard for me to say this, but I think if I can open up about it in public, that it might help others. I wanted to believe Trump was the real deal for a long time, even though I had doubts because I knew enough about his business history to think otherwise. But now I regret my support for him, and I should have known better. He's making it plain as day. He's a con man, a liar, doesn't keep his promises. He's in office all for himself, and he doesn't even try to hide his corruption anymore. So unless you get all your information from what I call the right-wing propaganda for profit, disinformation, media, industrial complex, he's the worst president we've ever had, and he's the most corrupt president we've ever had. I know it's hard. It took me a while to be able to say that. Very difficult when you commit yourself to believing in somebody.
Thomas, if you don't mind me interjecting, did you vote for Trump all 3 times in 2016, 2020, 2024?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Say that again, please.
Did you vote for President Trump all 3 times that he's run?
Yes. I wanted to vote. I considered a third party, and I considered even a Democrat, but I did, in the end, vote for him.
And what do you feel? That's really interesting. What do you feel, or what was the straw that broke the camel's back this time around? Was it the war? Is it something
I don't think
else?
it's one thing. It's been a cumulative process. And it's gotten so blatant now, and he's just literally the things he's going to lower prices on day one. He was going to do this on day one. Only he could fix all this stuff. And now I understand how somebody like Adolf Hitler was able to brainwash millions of people. I never thought I'd see that again in my lifetime, but it's happened, right? I thought we got past that, but we don't learn from history. But I just hope we got to slow him down, make him accountable any way we can. Right now, the only weapon is to vote for as many Democrats, whether you like them or not, to just get some balance back into our system of checks and balances, right? Congress is doing nothing to stop him. He has more power. He wants to be a king, and we're letting him get away with it. We fought a revolutionary war against England because we didn't want to be ruled by an arbitrary king like Trump wants to be. So, but I'll stop there for that. Leavingmaga.org for anybody who's interested. It gives you a community of people who used to be supporters, but who also are having doubts now. So and being part of this community is a big part of the appeal, I think, right? So
that last part's really interesting. I mean, I can't speak to how that website actually functions, but we talk about the MAGA world and Trump fandom as a cult for a reason. There are religious overtones. It is constructed in like the cult of personality in a way that also mirrors like other thought negating hierarchical parts of our society, like mega churches and televangelist preachers who preach prosperity gospel, and you have people who don't have any money but are giving what they can to their local church. Trump is that kind of guy. And so how do you get people out of cults? How do you get people out of kind of antisocial thinking in general? It's you develop a community for them. So, I mean, that's part of it. It's like you don't want people to feel shame if they're coming to this realization, but he talks about in that clip, like, how we have to learn from our history. And you voted for Trump 3 times in a row, bro. So, I mean, I guess better late than never.
Long-term history
as
opposed to short-term history. I mean, I am happy to hear voices like this, and I have absolutely no doubt that it is helpful in some way. It may not be helpful in a huge way, but it's definitely helpful in some way. And anyway, anything that's helpful in any way, I consider, if it doesn't cost much, to be good. But I mean, frankly, at the end of the day, this is not how things get fixed. You cannot rely on MAGA Trump voters to change.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen in the numbers that are going to be relevant. It may be relevant in the context of like this midterm, maybe, but ultimately it's going to have to come from Democrats providing something different so that people actually get engaged and are voting proactively for something as opposed to against something, because we've seen it just go back and forth. And the idea that, you know, Donald Trump, who has literally enriched himself to the tune of multiple billions of dollars in 15 months, finally, there's a couple of people who shake off from that. That is not the winning formula. That is helpful. It's great. Kudos and whatnot. But Democrats have to start offering something that is, and delivering something that is going to fundamentally alter the way that people perceive the Democratic Party and perceive government. To that end, in a moment, we're going to be speaking to Corey Halla, assistant professor of history at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, and author of When Democrats Won the Heartland, Progressive Populism in the Age of Reagan. First, a word from our sponsor. Life can feel like a big puzzle. Did you know that?
I did.
Yes, I think you do.
Yep.
You're constantly trying to fit all the pieces together. Well, the way you said that, you convinced me. Your career, your passions, your relationships, your finances, and of course, your health care. Yes, it's a lot, but finding care should not be the trickiest piece to fit in. That should be the easiest piece.
It should be.
Right?
Yep.
Well, ZocDoc makes it easy to find and book an appointment with a doctor that you're going to love. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find, book high-quality, in-network doctors so you can find a doctor you absolutely love. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states. ZocDoc is awesome. It is an app. Maybe you don't have a primary care physician. Maybe you don't have like a dermatologist. Maybe you don't have a dentist. Trying to get Brian to go see a dentist.
Yeah. I found my dentist through ZocDoc.
There you go. I found one when I was outside of town. I was in an emergency situation, found it through ZocDoc. You can also find therapists through ZocDoc. They have 200 plus specialties that are offered on ZocDoc. Dermatology, primary care, eye care is another one. You can search by specialty. You can search by symptom. And they have 150,000 providers across all 50 states. And then it gives you a bunch of different alternatives too. You want to see a doctor in person? Great. You want a video visit? Great. That can happen as well. And the beauty about ZocDoc is not only can you tell, all right, these people are in network or out of network for me, or you can make the appointments right when you're right there. You find the doctor, you go immediately to their availability page, and more often than not, you can find appointments within 24 or 72 hours of booking. Sometimes you can even get same-day appointments. Want to thank ZocDoc for sponsoring today's episode. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/majority to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/majority. ZocDoc.com/majority. Thanks, ZocDoc, for sponsoring this message. And we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Corey Halla, When Democrats Won the Heartland, Progressive Populism in the Age of Reagan. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. Pleasure to welcome to the program Corey Holla, Assistant Professor of History at the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, and author of his first When Democrats Won the Heartland, Progressive Populism in the Age of Reagan. Corey, welcome to the program. I really appreciated this book because I was just coming into sort of like full-blown political consciousness around the time in which this book starts. I actually am one of the few people I've ever met who read Walter Mondale's autobiography. But that was after he won the nomination. And I think, like, coming back and really having a better, a clearer vision of who these folks were within the context of things is really helpful. And of course, the idea is it's a great time to have a vision of this. Particularly, we have Zoran Mamdani in New York, but we have Graham Plattner in Maine, which I think is a lot more sort of like analogous to what could revive in the Midwest. So let's just start with, like, give us the 1980s art, maybe hopefully in the near future, in the way that the 1920s and 1910s in that area were to the early 80s.
Yeah, and there's a ton of economic collapse, especially here in the upper Midwest, where I'm based out of Minnesota. It's not just the kind of the deindustrialization of the 1970s and into the 80s, the auto plants closing, right, meatpacking plants struggling, steel mining up on Minnesota's Iron Range struggling. There's also a crisis in agriculture too, that family farms are going bankrupt, are being foreclosed upon at historic rates. And this is, fuel inputs are rising, the price of commodities are falling, and so Main Street's hurting across the Midwest in the 80s, but it presents a real big opportunity for Democrats, for the left in the 1980s, to build power back. And it comes out of times in the late 70s of just, calamitous defeats across the board. In 1978 and 1980, in the 5 states that I'd study in this book, in 1978, there were 9 out of the 10 U.S. Senate seats were held by Democrats just in this region alone. By the end of 1980s elections, it's down to just 2. And so that's, a huge drop-off for Democrats, but a huge opportunity for them to rebuild along the kinds of politics that you reference, right? The politics of Zoran Mamdani, of Graham Plattner, in the era that I'm studying of Tom Harkin in Iowa, of Paul Wellstone in Minnesota, of Russ Feingold in Wisconsin, and others.
And we should say it's Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, North Dakota, and South Dakota are the states. What was it about the 70s, just to get a sense? What was it that flipped the script during that time? Because there's again, we had a populism throughout that area in the early 20th century. And certainly, places like Wisconsin were probably on the zeitgeist or the forefront of socialism in this country in many respects, short of maybe like the Lower East Side in the early 1900s. And so, but what happened in the 70s?
In the 70s, there are a few different phenomena. One is that American agriculture is doing relatively well, especially in the rural Midwest. So not just Wisconsin and Minnesota, but Iowa and North Dakota, South Dakota. The Secretary of Agriculture in the 70s, Earl Butz, is encouraging farmers to plant fence row to fence row, and then just tells farmers either get big or get out, right? Either expand your operations, take on more loans, take on debt, and get bigger, or just give up farming altogether. And farmers follow that. They do that because America's exporting a lot of grain over to the Soviet Union and internationally in the 70s. And then when Jimmy Carter embargoes grain on the Soviet Union in 1980 following the invasion of Afghanistan, the rug's pulled out from under these farmers. There goes the market. Commodity prices fall by 50%, and there's really that kind of struggle. It's as the Midwest has evolved, has diversified, both in terms of its economy, but in terms of its people as well. Cities like Milwaukee become kind of a target, a coded language, right? Of just, that's where people of color live. Minneapolis is becoming, more African American, has a native population, and becomes stigmatized, based on those kinds of politics and identities. And so there is that reaction toward urban areas that really means that by the late 70s, the voters are ripe to be picked off by the kinds of single issue campaigns that bring Ronald Reagan and bring the new right to power, whether it's, anti-tax, like Proposition 13 in California, those kinds of revolts in the Midwest, anti-abortion politics, anti-feminist and LGBTQ politics, lots of single-issue voting in both 78 and 80 that drag Democrats down. They're seen tied into those kinds of interests and less tied into the average, the kinds of kitchen table or the bread and butter economics that really are important.
So just if I hear you correctly, there was both like sort of the crest of the wave was the undercutting of farmers that took place because they had been told to design their businesses in such a way that they were very susceptible to that grain embargo. But simultaneously, there was growing resent for the social emancipation movements of the late 60s, early 70s.
Absolutely. I mean, there's racial reactionary kind of politics. There's the anti-feminist kind of politics, and this all kind of swirls together in this idea that government is maybe not too big, but it's too big in the wrong places. It's helping the wrong people, or it's not doing enough to look out for average Americans. And that often does get coded as very kind of white working class politics. We obsess in the 80s about the Reagan Democrats, right, of Macomb County, Michigan. There's a lot of that kind of obsession, but the goal of these progressive populists I talk about in the 80s is not to just say, well, let's win back only the white working class and end it there. It's to say, no, we need to build a broader kind of politics, a multiracial coalition, but that's based in economic issues first and foremost, that the system is stacked against you, the working people, and that there is a kind of democratic politics that can be receptive to that. Because like you mentioned with Wisconsin and Milwaukee in particular having its sewer socialist traditions in the early 1900s, no, there's a politics we can call back and we can bring back into the conversation here that's going to be really productive and going to adapted for those changes in the region. There's a kind of politics that's going to overall be more helpful here to the Democratic Party.
So who was the first to sort of like, I guess, introduce that notion and find success with the populism? And I should also say, like, and I was familiar with a lot of stuff that Jim Hightower said. But in your book, I can't remember if it was like in the first chapter or very early on, there's a quote from Jim Hightower, which I found really actually a great way of providing a distinction between what he called liberals and progressive populists. Was liberals will react, and I can't remember the exact thing that he was referencing, but liberals will react to a situation where, like, let's say a Tyson plant closure by saying we've got to retrain the workers, whereas progressives will react by shaping the market structure that allows a Tyson plant to close in that situation just because they want to squeeze more profits out. And I thought that was, I mean, that is really the difference between neoliberalism and progressivism. If people want a shorthand, that's really it right there. One relies on the market, and we will help facilitate the market. The other says we're going to restructure the market in such a way that's fair for other people. But who was the first to sort of, like, within those 5 states to sort of introduce this notion?
Well, so in terms of politicians, the one who's at the forefront of this is Tom Harkin of Iowa, a congressman from a very rural, often conservative coded district in southwest Iowa. And Harkin, I had the good fortune to actually find just his reading list. Like, he had a bibliography of all these old populist historians. And it was him reading it and kind of studying populism and saying, oh, no, we can bring this back in, right? Here are the kinds of policies that we ought to be running on. But they also intersected with a whole lot of activists at the grassroots level, folks who were traveling out to the Black Hills for survival gatherings in 1980 and talking with Native and environmental activists. There were activists in St. Paul, Minnesota, who just set up like a kind of a radical newspaper and called it the Farmer Labor Leader. Called it the Minnesota Leader, which was a direct callback to the old third-party Farmer Labor Party here in Minnesota. So there are people at the grassroots just kind of saying this stuff and saying, hey, we're experiencing economic conditions as bad as the 1930s, and we're experiencing a government that's not listening to us. We need to organize at the grassroots, bring back these kinds of cooperative commonwealth, these kinds of socialist principles, repurpose them for the 80s and bring them in. And there are folks like Tom Harkin who saw that happening and earnestly believed in that and kind of identified with those politics. There are others like Paul Wellstone in Minnesota, who was just a professor at Carleton College, who eventually intersects with the Minnesota leader and starts an education committee where they're traveling around to farmers who are fighting a power line in central Minnesota, working with welfare mothers down in southeastern Minnesota, and says, yep, the farmer labor tradition is great, and let's bring this back in. And Wellstone runs for state auditor in 1982 in Minnesota and says, I'm running as a progressive populist. And that for me was a moment of, oh, he learned this from somewhere, right? And let's track where that was. And it's really cool to see in the book. I hope
he didn't even know how to do math. I mean, that's an exaggeration. But he basically said, like, I don't know how to balance these books, but I'll hire somebody to do that.
Yeah, he said, I'll hire someone. And beyond that, we should have a nuclear freeze and we should have a moratorium on farm foreclosures. And people are looking around going, dude, you're running for auditor. Like, that's not what the role is. That's not what the job says. And he says, well, they're all tied together. And by the way, I want to have a state bank here in Minnesota the way that our neighbors up in North Dakota have a state bank, which is when you mentioned Zoran Mamdani, right? That idea that we can't have city-owned grocery stores, that's socialism. And I have a moment where I look around and think, well, North Dakota's got a state-owned bank and a state-owned grain mill and elevator. Should we talk about the socialism in those states as well, right? The ways in which government's structured in those states to help the little guy out. And these are traditions, right? You mentioned Graham Plattner, and then Dan Osborne in Nebraska right now is running on similar kinds of ideas of restructuring those markets and using government to set up institutions if necessary to make sure that little people aren't, little folks aren't falling through the cracks in the process.
So we have Harkin, and he goes on to be senator. He ran for president in 92. He was my pick in 92, but that didn't work out. We've got Feingold, also one of my favorite senators. Sort of was like, the interesting thing about Feingold is he was very much an institutionalist in addition to the populism. I mean, that was and I think that was a very sort of like, it was a tough thing to maintain for him, I think, particularly towards the end of his run. But let's get to the end of these guys' career. Paul Wellstone, of course, died in a plane crash in what must have been around year 2000 or
2002. Yep.
And but let's also talk about Daschle and Conrad and Dorgan. Daschle went on to be the Speaker of the House. Was it? Wait, no, I'm sorry. That's Gephardt. He went to Majority Leader. But speak to those three guys and like how much they were all in on, where they were on these relative spectrums. And then we'll talk about why this died out, it seems like.
Yeah, so they all kind of come of age and really are breaking into the Senate in the mid-1980s, the peak of the farm crisis here in the Midwest. Daschle wins his Senate seat for the first time in '86, and that's the same year that Kent Conrad up in North Dakota beats a guy, Mark Andrews, who's a first-term incumbent senator, but he is very much like a Reagan Republican. He's well-liked in North Dakota, and Conrad, upset of all upsets, beats him. And they come of age in which they're trying to pass bills that are going to improve the farm economy. They're going to impose some government controls on American agriculture. They're also very opposed to free trade, in particular opposed to the North American Free Trade Agreement, which eventually signed in 92, 93. And this is the kind of politics they're advocating for, that main streets in the Midwest are going to hurt. And it's not just the farmer who's going to hurt. It's going to be the Main Street Bank. It's going to be the school, the hospital in town as people start dying and they're underfunded, as people start moving away because they can't afford to live here. The school's going to get co-opted out. It's those kinds of politics that they're espousing when they break into Congress. And with somebody like Feingold, they trust that Congress can actually pass the bills and create the establishments that are going to fix those sorts of things. They very much believe earnestly that setting up commissions, regulatory bodies that are going to oversee and going to prevent corporate mergers and kind of consolidation, by breaking up those big businesses, by breaking up those trusts as their populist forebears did, they're going to be able to kind of return some of that control and return some of that autonomy to the local level. It doesn't wind up happening, and you said we'll get into the decline, so I don't want to spoil that, but they do have a very clear policy vision that they're pushing for at the Senate level, but they're running up against those kinds of neoliberals, the new Democrats or new liberals of Congress in the late 80s and early 90s, who either have the numbers or who make deals with Republicans that oftentimes undercut a very specific vision they're pushing out of the Midwest.
how does Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition fit into this as well? Like, we talk a lot on this show about outside, inside politics and how you have to play the outside game, but also play the inside game. It's interesting. I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez right now is maybe melding those two better than any politician we've seen in a while. But where did, reflecting on Jesse Jackson's movement, how does that fit into this dynamic?
It's central too. One of I think my favorite chapters to write was chapter 8, where I kind of deal with the rise of Jackson in the '88 Democratic race. And one of the kind of outside-inside games that's really interesting to it is that he very much has that role of outsider, but it is a very authentic kind of politics where he's at a farmhouse in Greenfield, Iowa, which is, I mean, not a nowhere town, but an out-of-the-way town. He sets up his campaign headquarters not in Des Moines, but in Greenfield, this town of 3,000 people, because he's been working with a farm activist named Dixon Terry there for 4 years. He has these long-standing relationships that are built, and in that way is able to kind of build this movement of people who feel like they're on the outside, who feel like they're not being heard in politics. And it's interesting to see the ways in which some of these Midwestern liberal senators are pulled into, or at least adjacent to, that kind of orbit. Harkin doesn't endorse Jackson because he's already sponsoring a bill with Dick Gephardt, the Harkin-Gephardt Farm Policy Reform Act. But others like Paul Wellstone actually is the campaign manager for Jackson in Minnesota and runs this kind of outsider politics that you see when Wellstone gets into office, that he's very much in that Rainbow Coalition kind of idea, that it's not that we need to move the tent to the center. It's that we need to be expanding the tent and looking for new folks who can come into this kind of coalition, folks who feel marginalized on the outside because of race, because of religion, because of sexuality, because the economic system is just built in a way that they're not included. And that idea of being on the outside was something that a whole lot of people, it turned out, could gravitate toward. Not necessarily all within the Jackson campaign, because others like Gephardt and Paul Simon were seen as credible alternatives in '88. But it was this kind of politics, certainly of the Jackson campaign, that really informs that rise of the Midwestern progressive populist kind of cohort in the late '80s.
I just want to go back to when these guys get into the Senate and the House, because in 1980, Democrats get wiped out, or I should say by '82, they get wiped out. I mean, in the Senate. Obviously with Reagan in '84, I went into college in that year, and my government professors were talking about a realignment was happening. And so these guys, a lot of these populists are cutting against the trend in terms of what's happening electorally. So you would think that if there was a neutral body that got to sort of like oversee where Democrats should go in 1988, let's say, or in '92, they'd step back and they'd go, okay, there's something changing in the country. There's a backlash to the emancipation movements. There is a new sort of like deprivation that is coming as offshoring starts to happen. And everybody was talking about the Japanese coming in, buying up everything at that time. And this sense that America may be beginning its descent in some way. Reagan came in and said to everybody, it's a new morning in America, and all is well. We're going to return back to that notion where we were, completely without peer in the world, or we thought we were, or whatever it is. You would think that body, if they were aliens who came down who were in charge of like the Democratic Party, would say, oh, we should look and see what these guys are doing. Because there's obviously something happening with the Reagan Democrats, but these guys are speaking to those people in some fashion, and that's not what happened. There was one moment where you're talking about Tony Podesta being out, I think it was out in California, or Coelho as well, seeing what's going on here and having no response other than Democrats should start going after this corporate money.
And that's really what winds up happening throughout the story in this era. It's Tony Coelho, it's Chuck Mannett as the chair of the DNC saying, no, we're going to bring in corporate money. We're going to bring in donations, because the issue was we were out fundraised and our ground game was beaten by direct mail and all this kinds of this really targeted voter contact. Well, the way that we do that is by raising a ton of money in order to go reach voters, and it turns into first a failed telethon in 1983, and then just outright raking in those corporate donations. It's folks like Quello, it's folks like Rahm Emanuel, who cuts his teeth kind of learning under Quello how to attract this corporate money. And the folks in the Midwest are showing, right, hey, there's a different way. You can be organizing people instead, that there is this kind of grassroots campaigning that there's not a substitute for, of making these authentic kinds of connections. But that's where the difference does come in. And with Harkin in 92 as well, Harkin, for all the good campaigning he did in Iowa and all the people kind of politics he was good at, it didn't scale up on a national level. Clinton as well had that kind of Tyson, that Walmart money behind him too. And it was tough to break through with that kind of a message if you didn't have, an expert ground game, if you didn't have the kind of message that really appealed on a national level.
Clinton also was just like, one of those type of politicians. If you were to design him in a petri dish, you would basically, you wouldn't necessarily. I mean, his politics, he projected a populism to the extent that he needed, and certainly he was just a good politician in a way that Harkin was not quite as charismatic as a guy like Clinton. But how much of how much of the Coelho and Emanuel and the sort of move to the neoliberal bent, the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council that Clinton was the first president or chair of, I think, and this move towards corporate money. And I know this is outside sort of like your portfolio here, but how much of that was, we need to do this to win elections, and how much of it was, this is how we want to win elections? Like that fine line between, my experience has been that folks who are positioned as the so-called moderates or centrists in these situations, the one who are supposedly the big tent, because Harkin and Feingold and certainly like Dorgan and Conrad, sometimes they took votes I wasn't necessarily so excited about, but they were actually the ones who were reaching across a wide range of voters. These guys, I think, they use the idea of electability and the tactics associated with it as a cover for, these are our people.
Yeah, it's that electability is the exact right word, and especially in '88 with Jackson, that comes up. At '92 again with Clinton, he goes on Arsenio and he grins, he plays the sax, and it just is this very positive kind of image that, oh well, this is electable because nobody finds him terribly disagreeable. Never mind all the marijuana and the infidelity and everything else. There's that kind of raw rage that comes out of the Midwest at points in the '80s. That really does lead to these concerns about electability. And I think that the taking money is certainly a way in which they, the DLC and the DCCC see themselves absolutely as these are our people. This is how we just restructure them. Sorry, not restructure, but this is how we retrain and just kind of deal with the changes in the market. Globalization is coming. There's nothing we can do about it. Okay, well, time to teach the people in the cornfields to grow something else. Time to teach the people in the plant that's being closed. Well, here's how we're going to retrain you for a high-tech job now. Never mind that the people are saying this is actively going to hurt us, that they're saying this is going to hurt our communities, we don't want to relocate, that there are environmental reasons, that small family farming, small agriculture is better than large corporate agriculture. When the money's coming in and when there are politicians at the top who are able to just put on a kind of a happy face and say, look, we're going to all get through this and navigate this together, it does crowd out some of the more strident voices in the Midwest who had reason to be angry. Right, they had reason to believe that this is the economic system that's coming to screw them over again. But that's where the idea that there's money behind them, that there's this kind of corporate money and this Democratic National Committee structure that's saying, look, we want the firm hands on the wheel. We want these established superdelegate politicians who come around in '84. We want them to be kind of running the show. It does set up a structure in which these voices are crowded out very intentionally because they're looking for a way in which they can show that they're the mature party and that they're able to kind of handle politics as Americans want to see them.
And then let's just briefly touch on Dukakis, because that was like, I was pretty emotionally invested in that. Dukakis was from Massachusetts, and he specifically, it was sort of fascinating because in many respects, he had the Eastern version of those politics, but it seemed to me, this was my perspective at the time, and granted, you know, this is, I was a kid, I was very young, well, I was 20, I don't know, 22, but nevertheless, my perspective on him is that he was told by all of his, I think at the time I thought Harvard advisors, that he should hide from his populism and just be a technocrat. And I sort of felt like I got very disillusioned because I was like, if a guy who shovels his own walk when it snows loses to George H.W. Bush, there's something really fundamentally wrong. Like the people around him, but tell me the more sophisticated version of what actually went on.
Well, no, I mean, there are criticisms certainly of Dukakis and the kind of high-tech economy that he was building around Route 128 in the Boston area, right? The Lily Geismer, her wonderful scholarship on kind of the new high-tech liberals that come out of this era.
The Atari Democrats.
The Atari, yeah, it was a politics that didn't necessarily play across the rest of the country. It's certainly, though, on face value, right? Like you note, it's something that should have been able to play, but he makes a really early gaffe in it that Iowans still, and I shit you not, you bring up Michael Dukakis and they will still say, oh, blueberries and Belgian endive. And that was an early answer that he gave to how to solve the farm crisis. Well, if they don't, you know, if corn and soybeans aren't working, they could try growing blueberries and Belgian endive. And imagine suggesting that to a farmer. That was the kind of the retraining comment that really goes over like a lead balloon in the Midwest. And he's working to make up some of that. He's working to kind of change some of that narrative here. But, you know, Jesse Jackson goes into states like Michigan and beats him in the 88 caucuses. Dukakis has a really good organization on the ground in Minnesota and Wisconsin and really makes it a point to beat Paul Simon and beat Jackson there. But it is something where Dukakis comes out of the primary, comes out of the DNC with, it's like an 18-point lead in the polls, and where that DNC is just a big roast of H.W. Bush, right? You know, you have Hightower up on the stage making fun of him, you know, sniffing a fruity white wine spritzer while the rest of us are going down to the 7-Eleven for a six-pack and a Slim Jim. You have Ann Richards of Texas, again, a good Democratic populist governor, going up and saying, you know, poor George can't help it. He was born with a silver foot in his mouth. I mean, they're on the front foot, and it is, you can almost see the moment. And 2024 was with Tim Walz especially, was a really scary moment of kind of reliving that, of you could see when the consultants got a hold of him. Yeah. Right? When all of a sudden we need to pivot to being strong on defense. We need to be tough on crime. The questions where, you know, he's being asked about if his wife Kitty was raped and murdered in a debate. The ways in which he is put on the back foot all of a sudden is having to, no, we need to appeal to that center. Rather than offering a new vision and trying to rebuild a new coalition, you can see the ways in which Dukakis is reined in, and the way in which Lee Atwater and the Republican Party around George H.W. Bush go all in on that Willie Horton kind of strategy.
Willie Horton was...
Of the race baiting, absolutely.
Willie Horton was a guy who was convicted of, I can't remember what crime it was, but was out on parole. It wasn't necessarily even a Dukakis. Dukakis had any real influence over that decision, or even the law. I think that allowed that, but they really played that up, the Willie Horton thing. I do remember that debate when he was asked that question. And he was a little robotic in the way that he responded. And then, of course, they needed to put him into a tank so that he could project that he was good in defense. And the tank helmet was like 3/4 of the size of his entire body. And it made him look rather silly. So what is the lesson, though? I mean, and are there politicians in the Midwest? I mean, I think, like, you know, and I don't know if Plattner derives any inspiration from these politicians. Surely, I imagine he's familiar with a guy like Feingold and Harkin and Wellstone. I mean, these are pretty sort of like big and recent figures in many respects in our politics. But where does this lead? I mean, like, do you see green shoots in the same way that you might have if you were in 1985 in Iowa and looking back?
Absolutely. There's reason I think for optimism within the Midwest, within this even rural Democratic kind of tradition. Dan Osborne, who I mentioned earlier, running as an independent for Senate in Nebraska, certainly is talking about a lot of these issues. He was just joined by a candidate running at the congressional level in Nebraska, Austin Allman, who's an independent journalist, who's outright calling himself a populist in this Midwestern kind of tradition. So those are folks to watch for. And one of the things that after these Midwestern senators either lose or pass away that I mentioned in the conclusion is that a lot of their traditions live on. There's what's called Fighting Bob Fest in Madison that lasts over 20 years. Folks coming together talking about Robert La Follette, the progressive Republican from Wisconsin, talking about that kind of progressive populist tradition that he's running on. The Harkin Steak Fry, right in Indianola, Iowa, is a regular event for Democratic politicians to come and do that kind of retail politicking and glad handing. And in Minnesota, after Wellstone's death, there's what his campaign manager sticks around and sets up what becomes known as the Wellstone Academy, which is a training kind of seminar for candidates who want to run for office and learn how to, in other words, win the Wellstone way. And it's teaching the kind of Wellstone triangle that they talked about of electoral politics, right, of how to run, how to be a good candidate, how to work with grassroots actors and grassroots groups, but then also how, what kinds of progressive policies you can espouse that are not only effective, but are really authentic on the campaign trail. What's actually going to restructure these systems to help folks out? And one of the early trainers within this, you go through Wellstone Academy, you learn how to be a trainer. One of the early trainers for that was Peggy Flanagan, an Anishinaabe woman who's currently lieutenant governor of Minnesota, who's running now for Senate in a primary in Minnesota that kind of recalls some of that kind of establishment, more liberal, kind of establishment liberal Angie Craig versus Flanagan, who is within relatively that progressive populist lane here in Minnesota. She trained very famously after the 2024 elections. We learned she trained Tim Walz, who went through Wellstone Academy when he was running for Congress in 2006 in Minnesota. Others like Katie Hobbs in Arizona, Dave Loebsack, the former congressman from Iowa, went through this trajectory. And so there's a lane there, and there's that tradition that Flanagan might be keeping alive, that Osborne and Allman are certainly running on in Nebraska. But one of the points of the book, too, is it takes time to build these kinds of things. And I don't know, 2026, how quickly and how authentically you can get those sorts of things on the ground and get those things embedded within communities. It took building trust within communities, assuring folks that you're actually going to go and take on some of these systems because they've been burned in the past, or have reasons to believe the Democratic Party isn't looking out for, isn't concerned with them. Think about the famous Chuck Schumer line from 2016 now that's being bandied about for every voter we lose in rural areas. We pick up too, and he says, right, you can repeat that in Wisconsin, in Ohio, and other states. Well, the problem is that kind of attitude loses Democrats, the entirety of North Dakota, of South Dakota, of Iowa, and it takes time to really rebuild that in authentic manners. It's curious to see whether folks like Rob Sand running for governor in Iowa can occupy that kind of lane, and then can, if elected, if they win, can actually authentically kind of pass and push for those kinds of policies on a statewide level too.
It's going to be particularly fascinating, I think, to watch Minnesota, because you have, between the Floyd protests and now, of course, the anti-ICE organization. I mean, it goes beyond significantly beyond protests. I mean, they're actually sort of like a mechanism that still exists. Those networks still exist. The politics don't necessarily align with a progressive populism, but I bet a significant portion of it does. And it's really a question of like, who's going to tap into that? You mentioned Flanagan. Flanagan's up, as far as I can tell, but in some instances, double digits in the polls. We'll see. I don't know her politics too well, but
Schumer endorsed the other candidate, just to bring it back to Schumer.
So that is
electability is why they're throwing around that you can't run a native woman in outstate Minnesota and win, and that's part of the Schumer the Schumer endorsement, I guess, is running against that kind of, running on that kind of logic.
Well, we'll see about whether that logic
No,
holds
for
up.
sure, I
It's
agree.
failed in a lot of places,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yep.
But it's a fascinating story. Assistant professor of history, University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, and the author of When Democrats Won the Heartland Progressive Populism in the Age of Reagan. Corey Holla, thanks so much for your time today. We'll link that book at majority.fm and in the podcast and YouTube description. Thanks again.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks,
Thanks for having
Corey.
me. Yep.
All right, folks, quick break. We're going to head into the fun half of the program. Oh, Kowalski from Nebraska weighs in. Please let your guests know that I think this interview is in the running for the best of the year.
Whoa.
Kowalski putting his finger on the scale for some prairie populism.
Yep. Folks, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show, free of commercials, but you get to IM us in the fun half, and sometimes even not even in the fun half. Sometimes I'll read it in the free half, although we discourage that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why I was discouraged. I could just not do it. JoinTheMajorityReport.com, JoinTheMajorityReport.com, JoinTheMajorityReport.com. Also, JustCoffee.coop. They're from Madison, Wisconsin. They were handing out free coffee in 2010. Is it 2010 or 2010, 2011, when there were massive protests against Scott Walker, cutting back on their Badger care and on their attack on unions and the funding they were getting from the Koch brothers. And here we are 15 years later, and it feels like Wisconsin is back.
Yeah.
Just Coffee was out there giving free coffee to people who were, and it was freezing cold. Every weekend there would be these huge sort of marches around the Capitol. So check them out. They have great coffee too. But they're a co-op. They have a Majority Report blend, and if you use the coupon code Majority, you get 10% off.
I now have permission to share what is coming.
Hold on for 1 second.
Live from
Watch this space, but really,
Emma has got an announcement.
I do.
She is returning to her roots. Play the song again.
I've decided that prediction markets are the way to go, and I'm leaving to go back to TYT. No. So the Majority Report. Why did I say the Majority Report? That's the name of this show. I am overstimulated. So, my dear friend Matt Bernstein, if you aren't watching or listening to A Bit Fruity, his show, which I'm on fairly frequently, you really should be. He's just a great progressive, and he had Abdullah Sayed on recently. And so Mallory McMorrow decided that, it would, or Matt Bernstein invited her on. They were in talks to have Mallory McMorrow on the show.
To be fair.
Yes, to be fair. They asked for topics. You may recall, if you were super online, that this was a little bit of a controversy last week. And Matt emailed them back and said healthcare and foreign policy, and they canceled the interview. But Matt has a large social media following, and he decided to call this out very politely. And they came back and decided, okay, we will still do the interview. It was not revealed to her until the recording began that I was going to be joining the interview, and that is exactly what happened. So if you want to check it out, it got a little tense at some moments. I'm not sure she was thrilled with me in particular. You can check out the Matt Bernstein's A Bit Fruity channel and his podcast, but I also think we're going to be cross-posting it here on this channel. It's in the next hour or so. It should be out. So
to be fair, that does seem to be something Matt Bernstein does, right? Like when Ashley St. Clair was on, he had a third there as well.
He regularly has a co-host. He just, didn't reveal that it was me until the recording began, which we decided on that tactic together. So what I love about Matt is that just because he's always so perfectly coiffed and put together and has this very kind of calming tone of voice. People constantly underestimate how much of a dog he is, but no, he took it seriously, and we got a really interesting interview with Mallory McMorrow that you should check out.
She didn't say, "Oh, Emma Vigeland, what a fucking nightmare."
She did not.
Oh,
she
that's
did
too
not.
bad,
But
'cause
she
that
did.
would've been great.
There was
Like,
one moment where she said, "I like the way you phrased the question, Matt. Less so, Emma."
Well, gotta go to phraseology school, folks. Oh, Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media universe?
Yeah, New Left Reckoning come up tomorrow. We got Ron Placone on talking about a few things. We're going to be talking to him in a couple hours. So check that out tomorrow, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
See you in the fun half.
Wait, we're not off yet.
Yes, I know, but your camera. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook.
Throw our hands up.
Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
we are back. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland. New Fun Have song. I am. Hello. Did you forget about me?
Oh, right. Well,
I have to wait till Brian's back.
Brian's out, yeah.
We contractually we can't make those decisions without Brian. There's a lot of stuff here I want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with this number 5. I found this sort of intriguing. This is an interesting moment. Donald Trump is on Sean Hannity's program. I understand gas is going through the roof. The big thing that people are talking about is looking at Treasury interest rates and that we are now have crossed the threshold in terms of the returns on, I think it's 10 years and maybe 30 years, that supposedly triggers Donald Trump to change policy because he gets very worried about the bond market. He doesn't seem to get as worried about drivers and citizens having to pay for more things. Inflation and core inflation, which strips out gas and food prices, have both popped off.
Yeah. He was also asked over the weekend about, like, if he stands by it. That he said that in multiple instances, his statement that he doesn't care about Americans' like financial situation because he's worried about nuclear annihilation by Iran. And he said it was a perfect statement multiple times.
And here he is on with Hannity, and he goes a little further. And the amazing thing is that he had told Hannity something earlier about making money off of somehow making money. And by making money, he's not talking about the country. He's talking about either the oil interests in the country or him personally.
Right.
But then he shifts, and Hannity's like, but wait, you told me. Okay, watch this.
I don't know. Look, right now, there's no oil coming out of Carg Island. None. Zero.
They're going to cap those wells.
People are finding other places to buy oil, like Texas. So I don't want to say we're making a fortune. You understand that? Because if I say, they're going to say, oh, he forgets about the little man, you know,
That's not what you told me,
$4 gasoline.
You said, the reason, you said to me, this would wipe out their economy for over a decade. It's a population of over 90 million people that have been oppressed for 47 plus years.
Yeah.
And you said you didn't want to do that if you didn't have to.
So if I don't have to, I don't. Oh, that's the easiest shot of all. That would be done in 1 minute. The island took 4 minutes. The only thing I said, leave 50 yards around.
4 minutes. We
They
got
wiped
5
out
minutes.
everything.
Whatever. But you see how they elided that, right? Like when it became clear, that's not what you told me though. And when it became clear that he doesn't want to promote the fact that this is just enriching the same oil executives that he told before the campaign, put your money into my campaign and I will make you rich. And that is all that has happened.
Yeah. And we should have a competent opposition party that is making that abundantly clear. Like the idea that we don't have a coordinated messaging campaign from the Democratic Party about how this is exactly why we need to remove ourselves from dependence on fossil fuels because it's all connected to, you know, wartime ambitions and it's making your life much harder at the pump. Do you want to have to deal with these constant fluctuations in prices? No, it's a national security issue that we remove our reliance on fossil fuels. And the only reason we're doing this war is because Trump wants to make some oil executives rich. Is that making your life easier? It's not a difficult political, proposition to be making that case. And
it is when you want the
connecting those
war.
dots.
Well, I was just going to say,
Oh my God.
young lady, that maybe it's an easy decision for you, but I am torn. Because on one hand, I know everybody expects, because I'm the Democratic leader in the Senate, I'm supposed to be helping Democrats win and blah, blah, blah. But also, I want the war to continue.
Okay. What is your major critique of how Trump has operated here as it relates to the war in
Backroom
Iran?
deals.
Not enough paperwork.
Backroom deals.
More explanations?
Listen, there's a right way and a wrong way for continuing this war. Now, the war's got to continue either way.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives me something to critique him on. That he didn't fill out the right paperwork.
So we have the Republican president that wants the war in Iran to enrich American oil executives, and then we have the Democratic leader in the Senate who wants the war in Iran to be done more smartly because of ideological Zionism.
Listen,
in opposition
I
to his
don't
base.
want the war totally if we're not going to have the right paperwork. I don't want to come out and say, let me just say this. I don't want Taco Trump. I want him to stay in there. No side deals.
No side deals. Gotcha. You don't want him to chicken out.
Yeah. No more chicken Taco Trump. That's what I say.
They're going to sound tough in public and then have a side deal that lets Iran get away with everything?
What the hell is that about?
Get away with everything? When I was on the Bituation Room last week, there was a clip of you, Chuck Schumer, talking about how...
Did I swear? Because that's
you
my
didn't
new
swear,
thing
but
now.
you
I
seemed
swear,
really
you
upset.
Bastards!
You seemed really upset about how, this is the angle that he's taking here, that the American people are being screwed over by this war with Iran because China is getting stronger. Our adversaries are getting stronger. You know, what really motivates people to get out of bed and go and vote and go to the polls is when they're thinking about, China might be getting a little stronger here.
Well, I have data that shows... There is a person on Long Island who's friends with the Baileys.
Wow.
Who really doesn't like China. So that's basically who I've geared it towards.
Okay.
That one person, and I'm sure we got him.
Trump's all over the lot.
Yeah, Trump is crazy. It's like attack like Iran or pull back or whatever. Like, just do it.
Do what?
I just want it done. Look.
No side deals.
No side deals. I am not going to. Here's the deal. I promise I won't run in 2028 if I still get to be leader and maybe change your minds. I'm going to take credit. I've done a great job of candidate recruitment. Only 1 or 2 of my candidates have dropped out in the primary so far.
How many did you recruit who weren't, obviously...
Well, I mean, this, this Peggy Flanagan is a complete flash in the pan.
Uh-huh.
She's going to go away, lose 10 or 11 points.
Just by having less
August is a
fundraising?
long time away.
Okay.
But I was the one who convinced Sherrod Brown to run.
That newcomer.
He never had that idea before. And I said, hey, wouldn't you like to be senator? And he said, well, I was. And I said, what about again? And he said, okay.
And how about that governor, Roy Cooper, huh?
Oh, yeah. Like, who could have ever guessed that the most popular Democrat in North Carolina would be the guy that probably, in fact, the only popular Democrat in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And then also, what I did is I had this great idea. This little known congressperson in Alaska, Mary Patola.
Uh-huh.
Well, she was the only congressperson, and she was a Democrat.
Quite
She won.
literally, yeah.
And I said, you should run for Senate. And she said, okay.
Well, I'm honestly still hitching my wagon to Haley Stevens. This is the thing about her campaign, is that she's laying in the grass, and she should really see this out, all the way through to the very, very, very end. In fact, it would be a dereliction of her duty to fellow womankind if she did not see this entirely through and make sure that she does not drop out of that Senate race.
Oh, Haley Stevens. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She was a great pick.
She is a great pick. I agree. And I just
It's
think
just that
it just would be really, it
the
would set
media has
women
been
back.
very-
It would set women back if she were to withdraw from the race before the primary. She and McMorrow have to stick it out to the bitter end.
Yes, let's hope so. I mean, no. We got to... can we do a do-over in that one?
I know.
All right, so I dropped the ball on a couple of things. That's all right.
Okay.
Do-over. Taco Trump. All right.
All right.
I'm confused. Is Chuck Schumer going to be health inspector when he retires? Sam, I'm just now realizing your Chuck impression is starting to sound like Hugo, Chuck the Democratic autopsy inspector. Michigan Mower. Sam, is your Chuck Schumer just 80-year-old Hugo, the health inspector? This is the problem. There was a big Hugo episode last night. Maybe one of the biggest.
Wow.
I think probably, there's a lot of people who are saying...
Series wrap?
This should be, I think it could have been it's the second to the finale.
Oh, it is?
two-parter. Yeah.
Oh, I was just, joking that you were getting written off.
They held it back. They held it back because there's a lot of people, and I don't want to encourage anybody. I don't know that there's anything you can do about this. Maybe, I don't know, tweet at the Hugo, at the Bob's Burgers show. I get confused between Hugo, Bob's Burgers. A lot of people are saying Emmy.
A lot of people?
Emmy, yes. Emmy nomination for that.
Wow.
Yep.
For your voice work?
Well, it just it was just me and Bob in an elevator stuck for hours, and a lot of people are saying
Bottle episode.
Emmy award-winning performance. I don't think this is something that I think, well, hopefully you get recognized, but I mean, one of the ways that people get recognized is that a lot of people send tweets to the Bob's Burger thing.
Okay.
Emmy for Hugo. So I don't know. I mean,
just something to think about.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Watch Harry Emden.
Yep. Where else should we go here? Oh, yeah, let's talk about the taxation, because this is becoming a Mamdani has also forced, and of course Bernie has pushed this, and AOC have pushed this, and Warren has pushed this. Remember, she suggested a wealth tax.
Yep.
In the 2020 campaign. So this has been around, but it's gaining traction, and we have just seen a wealth tax imposed in New York City. Here is Ro Khanna on with Maria Bartiromo, and she just, it drives her nuts, the idea that we could see a greater tax on the uber wealthy.
Story. We just did the story in New York, how Kathy Hochul is moving the threshold down. You're going to pay a pied-à-terre tax if you have a second home in New York, not if your house is worth $5 million. No. Your house is valued at $1 million. Then you're going to pay a pied-à-terre tax if you have a second home in New York. Do you agree with that?
Pause it for 1 second. Now, I haven't heard this 1 million drop down from 5 million. This is the only place I've heard this. It may be true, but seems unlikely. I don't think there is an apartment practically in this city at this point that doesn't cost $1 million. Maybe there is.
Right.
But nevertheless,
certainly not the second home area.
I don't know if she's trying to argue it's that $1 million second home should be off limits relative to a $5 million second home. But regardless, let it go.
Yes, because you know what I believe, Maria, that the economy in this country is unfair and lopsided. Too few people, including in my district, which is
1% pay 45% of the tax in New York. The top 1% pay the majority of taxes in this country. You know it, and I do.
Maria, let me say this, and you may agree with me. Look, you can't have a country where a few people in a few places control the majority of the nation's wealth. That's not a democracy, and it's not sustainable. In world history, you've seen revolution when that happens. In Silicon Valley, you have 19 billionaires who have 12% of the
Pause it for 1 second. I just want to make something clear. She said that the top 1% pays 45% of the country's taxes.
She said the majority, so that's not correct.
Even if it was the majority, the top 1% controls about almost 80% of the nation's wealth.
Yeah.
So yes, they pay a lot more in taxes because they have a lot more. And let's be clear. They either got it because it was completely bestowed upon them by their parents, or they got it because of capitalizing on the infrastructure that all of our taxes and taxes before them that were paid, and taxes during the 1950s and 60s. Where it was 90 cents on every dollar above $470,000 and $3 million in today's dollars. And that money that was invested in the infrastructure today is what allows these people to make this money. Go ahead.
Percent of the economy. So what I'm saying is, if America has been good to you, you can do good for America. You can pay a little bit of tax so people have health care, child care, a living wage.
And they do. I know
They
plenty
can
of
pay a
billionaires.
little bit
All they
more.
do is spend money. Hey, I know plenty of billionaires. All they do is spend
Maria,
money on healthcare.
do you not believe that we have a wealth in
hospitals. They spend money to education. They spend money on the arts. They send all their money, and they send all their money to all of these nonprofits. I know plenty of billionaires that do just that.
But they have an obligation to pay some tax so that we can have the public goods and healthcare, childcare, and education.
They pay the majority of it.
But they're not.
The rich pay the majority of the tax in this country.
Warren Buffett has said.
No, you're mixing up words. That's not true. He was talking about capital gains
let me just finish.
I know exactly what Warren Buffett said.
Why?
Who's the guest of this program?
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
I mean,
she is afraid of this stuff being actually articulated.
I also think, like, who is the audience for this program is another good question. Like, you know, who is the psycho that's in financial, like, watching financial news and not watching CNBC? People watching Fox Business, like, they just want to be told everything's okay, Grandpa. And Maria Bartiromo is working overtime to make sure that's the only message that reaches their ears.
Yeah, the difference between rich guys who watch Bloomberg versus rich guys who watch Fox Business.
Yeah.
No, you're
Warren
mixing
Buffett
up
has
words.
said-
That's
Warren
not true.
Buffett-
He was talking
Warren
about
Buffett- no,
capital
Maria,
gains
let me
tax.
just finish.
I know exactly what Warren Buffett said.
why is
Warren Buffett
capital
was talking
gains-
about capital gains taxes. He was not talking about income taxes. I know
but
exactly
he's saying
what
he
Warren
pays
Buffett
less
said.
tax.
No, because
he
he's
pays
not
less
paying
tax
a
than his
salary.
teachers
He's not getting a
and farmers.
salary. He's not getting
And that's
income.
most
He's
of the
going
billionaires.
all stock.
And that's
because
most of the
he's talking
billionaires
about
in this country.
capital
It's not
gains tax.
fair.
You're mixing up taxes.
Right.
I
So
know
will you-
all about
would you-
taxes. Don't try it.
No,
You're
but
mixing
Maria-
up taxes. You got
Maria,
capital
would you
gains tax
agree-
and you got
Maria,
income state
would you-
tax.
Who cares?
Yeah, so would you agree that we shouldn't have, in this kind of wealth inequality in an AI world, which is capital biased, that we shouldn't have millionaires plus having less rates on capital gains than someone who's a teacher or a farmer or a machinist is paying on their W-2s?
I don't want to crush investment. I want people to encourage. I want people to feel encouraged to buy and invest into the markets and put it in their 401k. The way to create wealth overall
Okay,
long term
pause
is
it for 1 second. All right, so this is the sleight of hand, right? First off, she says, well, he's talking about capital gains taxes. And it is true that if you make your money off of having money, your tax rate is dramatically lower than if you make money off of working for that money. If you get a 1099 INT, if you file that, for your income, your tax rate is 20%. Maybe less. I mean, depending on how you structure it, but I'm just saying, like, as a rate. But if you're working and you got a W-2, you're paying 6.5% for your Social Security tax throughout your entire income. I mean, it caps out at 184. You're also paying income tax. And then, of course, you're paying all the other subsidiary taxes that a billionaire is subject to. But the sales tax is meaningless when you're a billionaire. It is not meaningless when you're making $50,000 a year, $70,000 a year, $25,000 a year, $100,000, $125,000, $150,000. And that's the point. Why do we treat capital gains in such a favored way in terms of the tax code? And she argues, well, we need it for investment. The stock market is not investing in companies. The stock market is betting on companies. I mean, give me a break. This is just about enriching wealth transfer to the C-suite when they do their buybacks or enrich their own payments. It's basically like they have it's like a poly market scheme. They own the shares in the company. That's how they get compensated. And they get compensated that way because of the changes in capital gains during the Reagan administration. And then they want to do whatever they can to juice the value of those shares. I mean, so because that's how they get paid. They don't get paid based upon necessarily on sales. They don't get paid in terms of the 10-year, 20-year outlook for the health of the company. They don't get paid based upon how many people they employ, They get paid based upon how many people they can cut and maintain productivity for a certain period of time until they vest in their stocks.
And you know what that also incentivizes is stock buybacks. So all of this extra
Which
money,
also was illegal
right,
until Reagan.
So like when Maria Bartiromo was shrieking, and she's never sounded more Long Island than in this moment, but about this, about like all of the creation and the job creation that it's doing and all of the innovation it's creating. No. They are doing stock buybacks to enrich themselves, to game the system that was already rigged in their favor.
And if the concern is, we need to be able to encourage investment, there are ways to structure things where you could literally encourage investment. But you have to determine, like, what is it that we supposedly like about investment?
Right.
They will tell you it's not that it's going to enrich me, the investor, and I'm going to get a favorable tax rate on it. It creates jobs. It builds communities. Well, let's tie in the capital gains tax into those metrics. Not just you invest here. You could say, okay, if you profits that are accrued 5 years out, 10 years out. There are ways to structure the capital gain. They'll never do that because that's not what it's really about. That is sort of like maybe a byproduct down the road that is irrelevant in terms of like, they just want to reward people who have money.
It's cool to be able to like bet on a business. And if that business does really well, because of the people who work for it, then you just get a nice big old dividend at the end of it.
Yep.
It's cool that we set up our entire economy to preference those individuals.
Let's go to another example, and let's talk specifically about the pied-à-terre tax. And this is why it is so, I think this is such an important sort of beachhead in terms of creating a tax system that, yes, it will provide funds. And in a city and in a state, it's even more relevant because you have to have a balanced budget. You don't have the ability to print your own money, et cetera, et cetera. But the other thing that it does, which I think ultimately is more important, is it decreases wealth inequality. You need a lot more than just a pied-à-terre tax on a second home. But taxation at this level is to inhibit wealth inequality, both from taking from existing wealth and making it harder for them to accrue even more, because wealth inequality destroys a democracy. There's no debate about that.
I mean,
this measure of wealth inequality becomes a political inequality.
We're experiencing it right now. You have a Democratic Party class that wants to make it just about the cult of personality about one man, but we could not have Donald Trump without the cutting of taxes for the rich and the oligarchy that delivered the White House to him.
You had $500 million was donated by two people to him.
Yeah.
Here is Scott Galloway, and I most of the stuff I hear from this guy, I appreciate. He's not exactly the type of person, the profile that I would, but here he is talking about Mamdani's announcement the other day about getting the pied-à-terre tax in the state budget.
When I ran for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million.
Okay, so I made a bunch of money. I go buy a fat condo. I bought it for $8.5 million. It's maybe worth 10 now. I did the math with this tax because I am a Florida resident and because I split time between London and Florida. It will cost me $100,000 a year. It's a form of a wealth tax because if my place were $10 million, costs another $100,000 a year, say a cap rate or a return of 6 or 7%, overnight the place goes being worth from $10 million to $8.5. That's real cabbage. Having said that, I am in favor of this tax. It's pretty clear that if there's any group in America that is not paying their fair share and can best afford an incremental tax, it is the very, very wealthy. And if you have a second home in Manhattan, not your primary residence, but your second home, the chances that you are very, very wealthy are very high.
I mean, that's it right there. It may be a lot of cabbage. That the value of your home that you bought for $8.5 million went up to $10 million, but because of the tax, which is essentially like adding a couple of percentage points to your mortgage, although a lot of them buy it cash, but nevertheless, it really only has, in terms of like a cash flow in and out, an $8.5 million value where you bought it. My response to that is that's extremely appropriate. Maybe we should not allow people who don't, I mean, I would extend this, but I mean, just even having the argument just seems absolutely ridiculous. You have someone who's not a resident of this state. They're paying real estate taxes on their thing, but they're not paying other taxes in this state.
And in a housing crisis, like, not saying that these wealthy homes are going to be, moved into by, an average person, but like when we have a housing kind of crisis and scarcity, you see these apartments, there's in Midtown, what's it called, like Billionaires Row or Millionaires Row, that are just completely vacant and empty because this is a very common practice for wealthy people to have a little place where they can go when they come to New York.
It's parking their money.
Yes, and it keeps going up in value.
It keeps going up in value. And why does it go up in value? Because of all the other New Yorkers who are paying their city income tax, and they're paying their state income tax, and they're functioning every day, and they're showing up to work. Like, the value of their apartments is a function of all the other tax-paying members of society in this state. And if they're going to benefit from it, either because this is where they're going to come in and drop in for vacation, or they're just using the apartment to park their money in a safe investment, or whatever it is completely reasonable that they pay a tax on this. Like, it's almost absurd that this wasn't the case already.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you kidding me?
Right. And it just shows, like, if they are going to complain and bitch about the second home pied-à-terre tax, look at what's in front of us and don't be hampered or don't be cowed by their whining, because they're going to they achieve this level of wealth without, like, for the most part, with people that don't really have the shame, that are going to voluntarily go quietly into this night when we have to tax the hell out of the rich to achieve some sort of level of democracy and, like, just income equality in this country, or reducing income inequality. It's going to be a fight, and let's be ready for it.
California Resistance Scott Galloway said this on Pivot last Friday. Again, he said he was all for the tax. I mean, yeah, we just played it. It's quite clear he's in favor of the tax. That's my point.
One of the patriotic millionaires has been going on with Jennifer Welch and saying, like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, those people are few and far between, but they are important voices.
It's kind of shocking how few and far between they are. There's a piece from George Orwell when he's writing during World War II, a year or two before England would pass the NHS, and he's talking about shared sacrifice and what it takes to get there as a society. And he says, like, the only thing you need to do is show that the rich people are sacrificing as well. And they really never do. Like, I would even call, like, Eisenhower tax rich the rich sacrificing. But yeah, they need to be made to sacrifice. And a good party would make it visible that they are sacrificing.
Somebody said, if I understood MMT, I'd know that the federal government has the capacity to generate funds and give it to the state. Yes, I understand that. The federal government has the capacity to do a lot of things that it doesn't do and is unlikely to do in the short to medium term. I'd like to start with the tax, not because we need to fund these places. Again, states and cities, if there was federal government available, that would be fine, but there's not. But the primary reason for these taxes, it seems to me, is to reduce wealth inequality.
And I hate to say it, but one of the primary reasons people like to bring up MMT is to avoid any kind of claiming back of that wealth. Maybe I'm being too cynical, but that's
I think that's
or avoiding that fight.
I think it's. I mean, look, there was an era where people would say we need to cut because we don't have the money to pay for this. And I think we have shown that really we are not even remotely close to where we need to be, where we don't have the ability to pay for something.
Yeah.
Just based upon the massive, massive deficit that is being run now. I don't think that's necessarily healthy.
But you make the case. It's an easy
because
case
of the
to
political
make.
choices that come out of it. But the bottom line is the best reason to tax the wealthy is to reduce concentration of wealth. It should be confiscatory. Yes.
I mean, what's happened in the past 40 years has been confiscation upward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All governments redistribute wealth. The just question is to whom at any given time. Let's take some phone calls. If this is... There it is. The number, ladies and gentlemen, 646-257-3920. 646-257-3920 is the number. You want to do the number 7, AOC?
Oh, yeah, we
voters?
should do that.
Yeah, tomorrow on the program, we're going to have Adam Serwer talking about the broader implications of the assault on the Voting Rights Act, et cetera, et cetera. Here is AOC. She was in Alabama.
Over the weekend, she's been doing a lot over the past few days, also rallying with Chris Rabb in Philly. Rob, I'm sorry, in Philly.
Who you should vote for tomorrow.
Tomorrow
if you're in
is election day.
What is it?
Well, if you're in Philly, and I forget the exact district, but tomorrow is primary day in Alabama, Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, Oregon, and Pennsylvania. So get out to vote. And what I love about what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is doing here is that the bridging a divide that really shouldn't exist, but it does, unfortunately, within the Democratic Party of, I think, Democratic kind of more Southern Black groups and the more like progressive DSA Northern contingent, which, is overrepresented by people in the North right now, in the Progressive Caucus, within the squad, adjacent, etc. And she's making it clear that the DSA left, the Bernie left, also stands with our friends in the South that are being disenfranchised. And I think when she's asked about her broader ambitions, it's not just about one position. I believe her on that. I think she wants to make this connection here between like the insurgent leftist movement and the democratic infrastructure in the South, because they are being disenfranchised and they need our support right now. And this is what she said in Alabama over the weekend.
It is time for the North to pull up to the South. It is time for New York to pull up to Alabama. It is time for all of us to come to Georgia, to Louisiana, to Tennessee, to Mississippi, and let them know exactly what they have uncorked with this injustice. They think they can draw us out of power. They do not know the sleeping giant that they just awakened. Because it is not a coincidence, and our whole country must understand that it was not until voting rights were ratified in this country that we got the Great Society. Because when Black Americans have the right to vote and that vote is protected, our schools get funded. When voting rights are protected, healthcare gets expanded. When voting rights are protected, our country country moves forward. In Montgomery, that's what they're actually afraid of. They're afraid of us coming together. They're afraid of us protecting one another. Alabama is the crucible. Georgia is the crucible. Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi is the crucible. So if you are not from here, it is time to pull up. Because what they thought was the final blow is actually just the opening silo.
And I mean, it's just, this is a return to the Democrats fighting in every area of the country. It's the 50-state strategy that has been abandoned because it's more convenient for consultants and more lucrative for them to micro-target specific areas and get expensive ad buys on television than incentivizing grassroots energy across the country, even in places where they are not necessarily competitive. You plant seeds of democracy. And it's more important than ever given the gutting of the Voting Rights Act. I love that she's doing this. And I think, you know, that showing up and she's courting black voters in the South there, but even if it's not for a presidential campaign, even if it's just for like moving the country forward and a working class coalition, I mean, gosh, that's important in and of itself.
I think it's also notable that it's the left flank that is showing up. I mean, Justin Pearson just endorsed Chris Robb. Did you mention that?
I don't think we did. Yeah,
but just that this morning, and it is like the left progressive insurgents who are showing up for this fight, and not, you know, Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, and she's right about how voting rights need to be protected for there to be any real democracy. We've talked about this before, but in times of like anti-democracy in this country, you see the assertion of the courts over the legislature. You see things like Dred Scott. You see under FDR when they were FDR had to threaten them and pack the court because the court was over asserting itself. And representation is really important, and that's why you have the Supreme Court trying to foreclose that possibility. So there is not this representation in the South that is so desperately needed and disenfranchising all these voters. And the only way to combat that is with a grassroots movement, and she understands that.
Let's go to the phones. We actually have someone on the line who I think has a big announcement for us.
Wow.
I believe, I'm going to guess, this is calling from a 509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam, this is Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, good to hear from you. I understand that you have some news for us.
Yeah, kind of an exciting opportunity for you and the audience. And if you'll just let me give a little background. This is going to be a sincere call, not a bit. Not a bit, guys.
Okay.
I just hit my 15-year anniversary as an immigration lawyer.
Congratulations.
And, yeah, sad trombone. It's been a hard couple of years, and it really started to take a turn, I think, in 2024, and not because of the election so much, but because of the Haktua girl. Remember Haktua?
Vaguely, yeah. How would that have impacted your work as an immigration attorney?
Okay, so just for background, in case people don't remember, this is a college student who went viral for saying that spitting on a man's penis is the best way to make him have an orgasm.
Okay.
Or like one of the top ways.
Yeah.
One of the top ways.
Sure.
Not necessarily. She didn't say necessarily like it's the best way, but it's.
Well, no, I got it.
Anyway.
We got the general gist. Yeah.
The general jizzed. Anyways.
Okay.
What was I saying? Oh,
There's
yeah.
What were you saying?
There's a lady on the line. I don't know if you're aware of
Okay.
that.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Emma.
Hey.
So she goes viral, and then she ends up stealing a bunch of money, and she just, it was fine.
Oh, did she do like the crypto, like a meme coin?
I don't want to rush to her defense like this, but I think she was used, her viral moment was used by maybe some shady customers who have done this a number of times to launch a meme coin, and she seems pretty
100%.
upset about it.
She's
now.
pretty young, yeah.
The point is really, and I'm not mad at her. The point is, she'll never have to have a job ever. and then I'm.
I
15
wouldn't go
years
that
in,
far.
and
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm killing
I feel like this has
myself over
gotten
here.
far afield. Let's why don't we rein it in a little bit and tell us what your announcement is?
Okay,
Like
so
somehow
the
we're
point
a
is,
huck
in
to
20
a girl after 15 years of immigration attorneying. I'm not sure where we're
The
going.
point is, this is the point. In 2024, I realized we live in a grift economy, and I'm working a 9 to 5 like an idiot. So I got to figure out how to get on that train, and that's why I've joined the experts at Minect.
Okay, so
I have my profile just went live. If you go to Minect, you can search Ronald Reagan. It's RAWNALD. And I'm here to help guru-tain the people. My angle is I'm sort of like a business guru, sort of like a vaguely spiritual, but also, I don't know. The point is, for $50, I'll respond to your text messages, and for $1,000 a minute, you can book a call with me. This is 100% real. It's online. You can pull it up.
We just pulled it up.
We got it. Let's check it out.
Yeah. There's a real picture of me. It's a little old, but that's me. And I have, like it says here, over 40 years of unparalleled life experience.
Okay.
I'm bringing to the table world-class expertise across virtually all fields of life.
Who are we?
And I'm here to help.
You ask.
Yeah.
Where do we come from? Question. Why are we here? Which Ninja Turtle is the best? Life's greatest mysteries are not going to solve themselves. Let me be your guide in these complex and challenging times. Where I can help: advisory, art, legal, manifestation, marketing, PBD podcast, sexual health, spirituality, travel, and wine.
Wow, you're so cultured.
Is that right?
Yeah, I know. There's at least two kinds of wine. They come in different colors, and
now
the big one for me is manifesting. Like, I'm really big into manifesting, and I think like if people are having trouble with that, the best way to
Excuse me. Hold on for 1 second. We've gone down to the rates.
Yes.
I need to ask you about some of the rates here.
So I don't understand why it's $1,000 a minute for a video call, but $500 for a video answer, which could be longer than a minute. Is it double the rate because you would have to talk to
One is
someone live?
This is such a good question. I'm a savvy businessman. That's one of the things you could talk to me about if you wanted to connect, Emma.
Okay.
You're getting this for free right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. This is like actually kind of a deal. The video answer, I'm smart. I'm going to keep the video answers to under 15 seconds. So,
well, that's because it's. Oh yeah, okay, I see.
So if I tell you, can you in video, can you like summarize like Hegel's phenomenology of spirit? And
Yeah,
you're
but
gonna
it's
get that
15-minute minimum, so it's a minimum of $15,000 if you're going to do a live.
yeah. Well,
I'll probably do the
I mean-
text. I'll probably do the text stuff.
okay, listen. Like I said at the beginning, over 40 years of life experience, more than 40 years. A lot of people haven't even been alive that long. So
It's true.
So, like right out of the gate, we're getting somewhere, and it really makes sense to chime in with, or, to check in with me about your manifesting, about your sexual health,
Yeah.
or just basically pretty much anything.
Have you manifested somebody booking one of these $15,000 calls for you?
Hell yeah, dude. Big time. Big time. And I understand, look, like for the audience, there's gonna be, I really only need like one rich guy who's listening to this right now to call me. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Why didn't you join
And for the-
OnlyFans?
Well, that's next. Yeah, but I mean, I wanted to try connecting first because, like, I feel.
Don't you think you should sort of build up to $1,000 a minute, $15,000 for a video call? Like, I'm looking at some of these other people on the Mr. Real Estate, Fernando Aguedes Jr. He's only $15 a minute for a call.
Look, if that's how he values his time, it says way more about his expertise than it does about mine.
Right. Okay.
You know,
All right.
I'm not gonna.
Fair.
I'm not gonna. First of all, I'm manifesting this. This is gonna come true because I want it to come true, and that's how manifesting works. And and also, I've just learned. I learned from Haley Welch. You gotta value your time, and you just gotta hit it big once, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
Again,
You really are charging close to $980 more than the top featured experts, even like Tommy Robinson.
Okay, well, yeah, but who is that? How long has he been alive?
Maybe
40 years?
He could be 40.
Also, if you book one of these calls, PBD will probably personally get in touch with you, right? Given the amount that he's.
Oh, definitely. You're one of our top performers.
I feel like I have a lot I could teach him, honestly. You know, he's obviously, you know, he's one of the greats. But I think that being one of the greats means being open to connecting with other people, and you know, that's what I'm here for, really. So I actually want to give a shout out to PBD and let him know, you know, any of these things that I chose as my areas of being able to help, like marketing, like I could totally help them with marketing.
Oh,
or wine.
You're offering your services to PBD. Here's a question I have. The Connect part. Is it, what?
I found out what it means.
What does it mean?
You're never going to guess it. It's the combination, like kind of valuetainment. It's a combination of minutes and connect.
Well, that's what I actually thought it was. See,
Exactly.
Connect for minutes.
Sam, I told you that.
Yeah, I know. I didn't
like 2
believe
days
you.
ago.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I told you that literally for free, by the way.
I just want to say, like, if you're modeling this off Talk to the Haley Welch sort of rise, I just would note that she currently has 195,000 subs on YouTube, but her most recent videos are struggling to get over 10,000 views, including Haley's Extreme Makeover Challenge Goth Tua. So that's might be what you have to look forward to, is doing a goth makeover in 2 years.
Goth Tua. No, I mean, honestly, for me, I need 10 rich guys to call me. I need 10 rich guys to call me a lot for just a little bit of time, and then I'm good. I don't need to be famous in 2 more years or have a bunch of YouTube views. I just need to connect with the right people, and really, like, it's not even about me. It's about serving the Connect community and the PBD community, because I have a lot to offer, as you know.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate, I think, you calling in and letting us know that you're available.
I'm just going to refresh this real quick and see if
anybody's, see
if any.
I mean, this call is about a 7-minute call. This is like a $7,500 call we just had.
This is expensive.
Yeah, I'll bill. I think there's a way for me to bill after the call. I don't know. I'm gonna have to call.
Yeah, that's
PBD.
what you got to do. Is you got to figure out a way to place calls in the Connect app instead of just receiving them. You place them, and that way you're charging people, and they may not even realize it.
I'm gonna text this link to John from San Antonio right now. And,
I'm sure there's a lot that we would like to ask you. He's supposedly going to call in tomorrow. All right. Well, Ronald Reagan, thank you for letting us know that you're available for Connect. 40 years of experience, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot find that.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I think you can find that at the top of the Connect leaderboards, because I think all these guys are over 40. But
okay. Well, let me tell you, it's rare to find amongst a cohort in their 30s. Let's put it that way. So,
why you gotta break his stride? Why you gotta slow him down? Oh no,
Scott Storch.
You gotta keep it moving.
Scott Storch costs $100, but a tenth of.
Part of what I'm connecting with people about is like how to silence your haters. So when Matt's talking, it's like I don't even hear it.
Wow.
Yep.
You're on another level, dude.
Ronald Reagan, thank you so much. Appreciate it. He just hangs up. He doesn't say goodbye.
I mean, his time's important.
Exactly. Valuable.
Spencer, can I get shofar for being 2 years sober? No alcohol. I'm still a stoner. Okay, well, getting there.
It's called California Sober.
Second on the leaderboard for Minect is a guy named Giancarlo Cherish. He's the co-founder and CEO of Empowered Media. Together with his business partner, Jillian Michaels, they have operated the Jillian Michaels Global Wellness brand since 2008.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. Let's play that video.
Well, let's just play. I guess we can tease it. I haven't seen it yet, so I just sent it in. Matt Bernstein, my dear friend, has published this. People should go check it out. Our interview with Mallory McMorrow. Let's just play the first 30 seconds cold open here of just a taste of how this interview went a little bit.
Why do you support funding to Israel's defense infrastructure? Why do you support funding to Israel's defense infrastructure?
Because I don't think anybody should live in fear of being bombed or killed. I would look at how do we support defensive systems for Palestinians? How would we support defensive systems for Lebanese?
Should they get an Iron Dome too, the Palestinians?
Well, let's talk about that as a conversation.
Well,
I mean,
hello.
Okay, so there you go.
Let's talk about that as a conversation. It's like 3 times removed from... I call for an Iron Dome for the Palestinians. Now, let's just be clear. The problem with an Iron Dome for the Palestinians would be the tanks and that would come in the invading military. But be that as it may, I'm calling for an Iron Dome for the Palestinians, maybe even higher than that on that scale would be I'm not going to vote for anything, for any authorization of military spending that doesn't provide that.
Yeah.
Then you're calling for it. It would be less than that, right? You're not voting for it. And then you are having a conversation about calling for it.
Yes.
And then you have just a conversation not involving the vote. And then you have, let's talk about having the conversation.
Yes, I love when Matt goes, well, I mean, Iron Domes for everybody, apparently for Iran as well. Yeah, so.
I mean, our military industrial contractors will like that
yes.
fix.
And we did end up playing, which was kind of my pick, that clip that, Sam, you couldn't get out of your head on Medicare for All. She backtracked from it in the interview.
Oh, she did?
Do you want to just play it? I mean, we don't have a ton on our
let's play
sound
it.
sheet. It's labeled as the Medicare for All section in the chapters. So
All
we
right, so
can
just
probably
a
get right to
reminder.
it. Yeah.
Mallory McMorrow over the summer.
We play the clip, yeah.
Yeah, we play. Oh, you play it in this?
Matt plays it for her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because when this clip came up, I found this to be one of the most offensive things I've ever heard by a Democrat. She's not the Haley Stevens in this race. She's supposedly like the moderate,
right?
Or not the moderate. She's supposed to be the sort of like comfortable progressive, like the progressive who's not the bomb thrower or whatever it is.
Right.
And to be this dismissive of Medicare for All on the grounds in which she dismissed it. Not like the country's not ready for it, not the usual sort of hemming and hawing, but I personally like it. But on the idea that the government shouldn't be in charge of programs because we have bad people elected to office, that seems nuts.
People really care about. So, Senator McMorrow, with regard to healthcare, you support a single payer option, which is different from something like Medicare for All or universal healthcare. I wanted to play a clip for you that's gotten some traction of you speaking about what you see as the risks of universal healthcare and just ask you more about that.
Sure.
Also, you're new to the pod and learning that I don't have a producer. So when I say like, I'm going to throw something up on the screen, what I mean is I'm going to play the video from my phone into the microphone.
Oh, that's incredible.
So,
okay, perfect.
Sorry, you're welcome.
Some people conflate Medicare for All with universal health care. But Medicare for All, when it's actually defined, is one singular government-run healthcare system that we are all on.
health care insurance.
Now, I want you to imagine what that would look like with Donald Trump and RFK Jr. at the head of it.
Emma, do you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. So State Senator McMorrow, it feels like the implication of your framing there is that government healthcare programs shouldn't be trusted because Trump and RFK Jr. are leading them. Are there other programs, specifically healthcare programs or social programs, you think should be cut because Trump and RFK Jr. are currently in charge of them?
No, that's not at all what I intended. And, why fundamentally and firmly believe that we need access to universal health care. We need to get there as quickly as possible. In the state Senate, I have led on efforts to codify the Affordable Care Act on the state level so you can't lose your health care with a pre-existing condition. We repealed our
Pause it for 1
1931
second.
abortion.
I should just say there is one healthcare system that has been cut by RFK Jr. and Donald Trump and the Republicans, and that is the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act subsidies were rolled back and the expansion on the Medicaid. Like, if you wanted to develop something that was protected from two politicians being in charge of it, it wasn't Obamacare. Because all they had to do was cut back on subsidies to private health insurance. Because it's so narrowly tailored that you don't have the widespread revulsion that would come if everybody in the country was like, I'm on Medicare, instead of just everybody over the age of 65. I'm on Medicare.
Yeah.
And they mess with my Medicare. That's the point. That's why they don't want it to be everybody, not just to have health insurance, but everybody on the same program and in the same sort of playing field. Because if everybody gets on the same playing field, it's the politicians who lose power. It's the insurance companies who lose power.
Condition. We repealed our 1931 abortion ban. We helped expand a program called RX Kids statewide, which is a cash grant program for new moms and babies. We've expanded access to doulas and to midwives. We've done so much because this is such a big issue. And what I know is that people can't afford to wait. The idea that we should hold out just for one solution, to me, is just not what I've experienced in governing. The next U.S. senator would be one of 100 members. And the votes for a true single payer system simply aren't there. Now, there have been multiple states who have implemented state level public options. And in those states, not only have they vastly reduced the rate of uninsured to next to zero, they've also reduced the cost of private health insurance. That is something that, as we look to how do we get to universal healthcare as quickly as possible so people aren't going bankrupt, they are not denying themselves care. I am somebody who graduated from college right into the recession in 2008 wanting to be a car designer. So I did not have healthcare. I couldn't stay on my parents' plan until 26. Having that real public option, anybody who wants to opt into Medicare, regardless of age, can, while also ensuring if you want to keep your plan through your union or through your employer that you can, I believe is the best way that we can get to universal health care as quickly as possible.
We can talk about, I think, the merits of the public option versus Medicare for all, but the public option would still be run by Donald Trump and RFK Jr. or whoever ends up being a Republican if they take over. So, additionally, the entire Republican Party is against Medicare for all and single payer. So it's almost an assertion that Democrats shouldn't pursue Medicare for all or even single payer because potentially Republicans could get back into power and control it. I mean, that is the implication of what you said.
I don't think that it is. I think that's a mischaracterization.
How would you characterize it then?
You talk a lot on the trail and you want to make some jokes and you want to help people understand where you're coming from. This is an administration that has slashed access to mifepristone. This is an administration who...
Okay, she clipped that. There wasn't somebody like us going to her speech and clipping it. They clipped that section and
put it up
on Twitter themselves.
Yep.
Well, it sounds like what she's saying is you got no sense of humor, Emma.
didn't get the joke. It's fine.
Listen.
I honestly,
Okay.
I forgot that's how she answered it because I haven't seen this since, we recorded it on Friday. But yeah.
That is stunning.
Yeah.
Look, I know I'm talking about healthcare, but also gotta have jokes.
Yeah.
That is what I found so offensive about the thing. It's like she just immediately went into stand-up mode. Because if you continue on with that clip, incidentally, she just is talking about RFK, eating roadkill or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And all well and fine, but that's not a reason not to have single payer. And she's sort of like backing off this. Also, my understanding is that you can actually hold a position. I am in favor of Medicare for all. And then when that doesn't come to pass or is not voted on, you can vote on the next best thing.
You can.
In fact, I'm quite sure that's what Bernie Sanders did when it came to the Affordable Care Act. In fact, he held out and he was able to get some some funding for community healthcare centers. But the idea that you can't even hold that position because it's a non-starter, this is what makes me very, very skeptical of her.
Yeah.
Like, you come out, you say, it's not the American way or whatever. You take a position, but this is sort of like she's hiding here. And that I find makes me nervous. Like, I find, I don't vote in Michigan, but that's what I found really disturbing. It was good for you to call her on this. Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's just see where she goes. Where she starts to explain to you, like, people like to have fun, Emma.
I know.
This is actually oddly the same conversation that we've had in the office.
Right.
Where I'm like, Emma, come on.
I
People
don't
joke.
have a sense of humor.
No, not at all.
Characterize it then.
You talk a lot on the trail and you want to make some jokes and you want to help people understand where you're coming from. This is an administration that has slashed access to mifepristone. This is an administration who intentionally withheld SNAP benefits, even though we had the funding to pay for it in Michigan. That's 1 million kids who are on SNAP right now. I don't think we should shy away from the incredible damage that this administration is inflicting on government programs. Here in the state, I'm on the Appropriations Committee in the State Senate. We are having to backfill state Medicaid because they vastly slashed access to funding for us. The one big
Under the
awful
Affordable
bill
Care Act.
means that Michigan stands to lose 13 rural hospitals. We've already seen a birthing center close in the Upper Peninsula, and now women have to drive more than 50 miles to give birth. I don't believe that it's out of line to highlight, hopefully with some humor, we're allowed to laugh sometimes, some of the incredibly damaging things that this administration has done, while we are also advocating for what we would do if we get back into power, what we're going to propose, and how we're going to get there. How do you build a coalition to actually implement a policy that restores health care for people as quickly as possible?
I think the rub there is just that the framing kind of undercuts the idea of universal programs because the bad party can take over at a certain point. And, I want Democrats to be talking about how government can provide social services for people. I think that needs to be a core part of the brand proposition. And, another part of your assertion was that Medicare for All is, I wrote the quote down, one singular government-run healthcare system that we're all on. Can you elaborate on that? Because Medicare for All is a replacement for private insurance with a single government payer, like Medicare is currently. It's not government-run healthcare.
Sure, you're right. And I have taken that feedback to heart. We campaign a lot. And I do talk about this differently now so that it doesn't come across as callous. And you're right, a single payer system, Medicare for all, in the legislation as it has been introduced and sits in the Congress right now, is a
All right, well, folks can tune into the rest. I mean, I can just tell you, we can sum up, we could have summed up that whole thing with...
She really did.
I mean, a good view. She needed to be questioned on that. She still sort of like seems evasive and elusive.
on that front. But yeah, everybody check out the full interview. There's a lot also, of course, on Israel and Gaza, the definition of genocide, offensive versus defensive weapons. My favorite was when she felt a little cornered and she asked Matt, how does your family talk about this? Like, do you have issues in your family? Because he's Jewish. It was very weird. It was very weird. But, you know.
Scott Croissant says McMurrow told Emma, maybe you should smile more. I mean, Emma doesn't understand that people like to hear jokes.
I know. Gotta lighten up in these dark times, I guess.
It's like one of the
about
things
universal health care.
It's been years, and I've been saying, Emma, people like jokes. What's wrong with you? You don't get it.
We're trying to help people understand over here.
Yeah. Meet people where they are.
Wow. I will give McMurrow credit for not openly looking like she's seething. Because I gotta think that if I was her, I would be like a little bit annoyed that you're actually like asking her a question about what she said.
As I mentioned later on, there's one point where she says that she likes how Matt phrased it, less so how Emma phrased it, and she said my name quite pointedly, and you know, that's how the cookie crumbles, I guess.
This was pretty funny. This was posted. I don't know. It wasn't Sam Stein. Sam Stein posted, but he was not the guy asking the questions. There are Republicans are now proposing that handguns be allowed to be mailed through the mail. I can tell you that, like, we no longer mail checks through the mail to our landlord because somebody opened up one of the envelopes and walked away with the check and then tried to cash it. And the name that they used to cash it was pretty funny. It was something like, I am crook or something like that.
That happened to me with my wedding as well, because if it looks like that envelope, sometimes people are just stealing it out and they cashed it and just took the money. Yeah.
Now, the problem with something like that is like someone could go and take the check, right? Or someone could go and take the gun.
Right.
As opposed to, let's say, voting, where somebody could intercept the ballot and that vote wouldn't be counted. That's conceivable that could happen. But it's not like you could figure out which ballot you're taking. Like if you wanted somebody to win, you'd have to go and steal specific ballots, I guess.
Yeah.
And you'd have to do that a lot to have an implication. But somebody, I think it was from the Bulwark, went out and asked some congressmen and lawmakers about that very question.
I just got back from Capitol Hill, where I was asking Republican lawmakers about a new U.S. Postal Service proposal to allow handguns to be sent via mail. I was wondering if Republicans support this and think it can be done securely. If so, do they think the same about mail-in ballots? Check it out. Congressman, there's a push to allow handguns to be sent via the U.S. Postal Service. Do you support that?
Sure.
And do you support mail-in ballots?
No.
I believe in the Constitution. You can ship alcohol if they can verify who gets them, then it's okay.
All right, so they're safe and secure?
Yeah.
And then how about mail-in ballots?
It's been proven not to be safe and secure in the past.
I think it's fine. I mean, we send all kinds of things through the mail.
So like safe and secure?
Yeah, I mean, we send all kinds of things. I'm sure there'll be like rules. Probably can't put it in like a number 10 envelope and just lick it, but we send all kinds of things to the Postal Service. And frankly, we ought to be giving them all the opportunity to make money that we can, because I think they run at a loss. So
Do you think that it's safe and secure to be sending mail-in ballots via the U.S. Postal Service?
Well, safe and okay. So the reason these are different questions. Your question about guns would be like explosive, right? Your question about mail ballots is different. I think that safe and secure. I mean, I think it's an interesting question. I think the challenge with is the Postal Service may not deliver your ballot on time and everything else. But no, what makes mail balloting insecure is the fact that you never know who got it, you never know who opened it, you never know who filled it out, and usually you don't know who sent it back.
I haven't really thought about it.
Pause it for a second. Now, just replace, you don't know who got it, who opened up the package with ballot and gun?
Yes. Yes.
And it's not like the gun's going to go off in the mail. That's not the problem. The problem is somebody else could open it up. And if somebody else opens up the ballot and mails it in, it's one ballot. And maybe they didn't choose the person that you wanted them to choose. And that voter is going to be like, hey, wait a second, where's my ballot? And they're going to go in and see like, oh, this ballot sent back from your address is not valid. We'll do a new ballot. If somebody opens up the gun and walks away with the gun, you're like, wait a second, I didn't get my gun.
Right.
Well, don't worry, we'll send you another one. Yes, but somebody's walking around out there with a gun.
Registered in my name.
Also, they operated a loss. Oh, God, my heart bleeds for the gun manufacturers. What happened to good old-fashioned capitalism?
The post office.
The post office. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. Never mind.
But I just love this moment where he realizes these are different questions, but he's boxed in by the language of safe and secure.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Is different. I think that safe and secure. I think it's an interesting question. I think the challenge with is the Postal Service may not deliver your ballot on time and everything else. But no, what makes mail balloting insecure is the fact that you never know who got it, you never know who opened it, you never know who filled it out, and usually you don't know who sent it back.
I haven't really thought about it.
Okay.
Here are my thoughts. I absolutely love the post office, and I never want to see it privatized.
That's great. And so just a follow-up question. Do you trust, actually, I should say, the Postal Service with handling mail-in ballots?
I trust the post office to do their job.
So mail-in ballots, yes or no?
Have a good night.
Oh.
Well, that's my favorite response. That's the most reasonable one.
From
I
a
can't answer
Republican?
this. Yes, I love the post office. It's great. I don't want to see it privatized. It's probably, I would imagine Wisconsin's third is probably a little bit rural area, and the post office is very important there. People are getting their little chickens. You can even get your little hens in the, not hens, chicks in the mail. And he also realizes I'm not allowed to answer this question because I'm a Republican. So I can't actually answer it in a way that would belie my party's agenda. That's fantastic. Good work by that guy.
Yes, very well done.
Madman Theorist. I just found out Graham Plattner owns AR-15s and opposes a ban on assault rifles. We should still support him, obviously, but do you think this might be an issue down the road? I think it's going to be an issue not unlike Bernie's support for guns, which I think is going to be like, listen, there's not going to be a politician who's going to be with you on 100% of things. And then it becomes a question of like, how much is one particular issue? How does that weigh? And the way you make that calculation is how much difference would that one person's support be on this one issue? On top of how important is that issue to you?
Plattner had a good interview with David Hogg on this exact topic. I would direct people to that.
So I mean, if he runs for president.
Oh, yeah.
That would be, but yes, Chris Chipster in Worcester. Oh no, a guy from Maine who is pro-gun. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing that Bernie ran into. You know, Bernie Sanders has a different gun record than, say, you know, more like a New York senator. It's more pro-gun. It's a more rural state.
Calling from a 914 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yes. Sammy! It's Jermo!
Jermo!
Honey, the phone's not working.
Oh.
All right, Sammy, I need breaking news.
Okay.
Breaking news.
All right, hold on. What do you got, Jermo?
All right, I am traveling in Texas. This morning, while listening to listening to background briefing, they mentioned Majority Report as one of the organizations pushing the progressive movement, but they also included someone else. Can anyone give me a guess who it is?
What is background briefing?
Background Briefing is a progressive radio show out of California with Ian Masters.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay.
I've been listening for years.
Yes, I've listened to Ian Masters quite a bit, actually.
This guy, his name is AJ Woods, and he's a doctor out of Western College in Canada. But he did mention Majority Report and, come on, Emma, who do you think it is?
Well, I don't know.
AOC.
What about?
He calculated that your station, your podcast, and AOC are pushing the progressive movement forward.
All right.
And expanding it. And you guys, that's real news. That's real news. Tell Ronald Reagan that I got the real news, baby, not him.
All right. Well, I will tell him. In fact, actually, you know what? You could tell him.
Yes.
Via Manette.
No, I'm not going to do. No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to waste my time and give him money. Are you crazy?
I would text him.
Sammy,
Text him.
AOC, the guy evaluated you and AOC as partners as getting the progressive movement going in the United States. I think that is a fantastic award or a
compliment.
Fantastic
Compliment. Yes.
God, I got two women telling me what to say now.
Who's the guy? AJ Wood.
A.O. Woods.
A.O.
So I got my wife here sitting next to me in the car, and then I got Emmett to tell me what the compliment. Thank you, Emma.
You're welcome. Sometimes we know best.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
But anyway, I thought that when I heard that, I was like, "Wow, I am listening to the best radio show."
Well, Jermo, it's all because of our callers, and we appreciate hearing from you.
Yes.
And please drive safely.
I am driving safe. It's beautiful weather out here.
Okay.
Nice wind in Texas. Take care, guys. All the best.
Appreciate
Take
the
care.
call. Bye, Jermo. All right, we will take one more phone call. Final call of the day. We didn't have that many. Hold on. Come from a 415 area code. You are the final caller of the day.
Hey, yippee sippy, it's me, Ian, in Vallejo, California.
Okay, Ian in Vallejo, California. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hey, it's great to talk to you guys. I'm an atmospheric scientist in Northern California, and my research has recently kind of shown how the state is warming about 5 to 10 times faster than it has in the previous century. And I've been desperately trying to, like, any microphone I can get, try to trumpet this from the rooftops, because it hasn't really been acknowledged by the scientific community yet. And I'm alarmed. This means that the 1.4 degrees Celsius warming that California's experienced since 1900 is going to happen likely in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. Like the same amount of warming that's happened over the past century. So this is consistent with other global trends. People have found that the sea level rise has increased in its rate. It's accelerating.
Yeah.
The global warming is accelerating. So I've been studying, climate and air pollution for 25, 30 years, and I've always been pretty optimistic. But this is now, I'm to the point where I'm actually pretty frightened. And there's a couple of other technical elements to that. But the point is, I wanted to put out a word for Tom Steyer on your show, because you guys have been a little lukewarm, and most of the people I talk to are similar. They've been putting off deciding about this, but Tom Steyer has a proven track record
Environmentalist,
of fighting against fossil fuels companies who are trying to repeal AB 32, which was the most progressive greenhouse gas, capping legislation in the world back in 2006 or whenever. It was signed by a Republican, Schwarzenegger, but he's got a great track record. Bill McKibben has, endorsed him. Ro Khanna. I mean, and when you start listening to him in the debates, he's saying stuff that other Democrats just do not say. Like, I think we have a chance to get something really, really different, a different kind of Democrat. Becerra, on the other hand, openly has taken money from Chevron and PG&E, and he's proud of it. Like you just said, We need Chevron. And Tom Steyer is, you guys have to listen to some of the debates are really impressive. Like, they asked him about, illegal immigrants getting health care, right? And you could see all the other Democrats, like, bristle up and, like, get all tense. And he just said it out loud. He said, immigrants built this state, damn it. Immigrants make this state run. And whether they're here legally or illegally, they deserve health care. I was just like, my jaw hit the floor. Like, he's definitely learning. Like, he's definitely moving in the right direction. And he's got the, like, financial independence to actually, like, exhibit some muscularity when it comes to these fossil fuel companies, which are just driving us into the ground, man. So I just wanted to make that pitch because I know from afar it might seem that everything sucks and all the candidates suck, but Tom Steyer really represents something unique as far as I can tell.
Well, the primary is June 2nd. Appreciate
Everyone's
the call.
got their ballots already on their, probably on their kitchen tables. And so I just wanted to make that pitch to your listeners. Thanks, you guys.
Great.
Keep up the
Thanks for the
work.
call.
Love you.
Thanks so much.
That ends the call-in portion of our program. There was hopes that, like, Becerra or somebody else, or Porter, or Steyer for that matter, or somebody would drop out because there's real danger of there being two Republicans in the general election. If I was in California at this point, I would probably be voting Steyer.
Same.
Both as a combination of his chances of winning and what he's been saying. There's no perfect candidate in that race, or even, but there you go. All right, folks, I'm going to read a couple IMs and get out of here. I've got something to record. Alex B., the judge in the Trump IRS case, was going to throw it out because one party can't be on both sides of the same suit. You don't have to you don't have a live controversy. Indeed. Brian subtext, the FCC recently dropped the complaints that were submitted during the Super Bowl. There are over 3,000 of them and some real diamonds in the rough. We should look for that, actually. Snarkorsky, if you order hens in the mail, you might get a pullet surprise. Okay. Gotta tell jokes, Emma. Dan from Columbus, mail-in ballots are bad because they might not arrive on time. What if I get mugged before my gun gets delivered? Sir, can you please wait 2 to 3 business days before you try and take my money so I can shoot you instead? And the final IM of the day. Matt from Minnesota, I approve of Sam's new voice role on this program as the over-the-top female host. But he really is just doing the Hugo voice again. Well, that's my secret. Matt, great job today. Under the weather, flying solo. Emma, also great job in infecting everybody.
I'm so sorry. I feel horrible.
I'm next on the docket. Folks, we'll see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and